Cookies.
All right.
That's the cookies.
That's right.
Here we go. All right, folks. We are now recording, beginning to talk. So, welcome once again. And in anticipation, Happy New Year. I'll say that again before we're all done. Happy New Year, though, because that's what I'm going to be talking about today. It is New Year's Eve today. So, this is a time where people generally look back on last year, think about what the wonderful things that happened last year, what all the dreadful things that happened were last year. They want to remember the good and forget the bad and move on and have a wonderful New Year, and they make all these wonderful New Year vows, which is lovely, which is just lovely. But really, from a Buddhist standpoint, and I think from a realistic standpoint, there are, I'll pick this up somewhere, there are actually only 2 times. We normally think there are 3 times, right? There are 2 times. There is the past, and there is the future. And then there is living. This is just living. This is just life. The past and the future are stories. They're not. They're just stories. They're not here now. Here now is a word, right? Not as 2 words. Here now. Sein Zeit. Just being. Just living. So, I'm going to wander off into the core Buddhist teaching, if you like, is I teach suffering. I teach 2 things, the suffering and the end of suffering. And central to a way to look at that are what are talked of as the 3 marks of existence: emptiness, suffering, and non-self. Emptiness, I'm going to bring this back to now and New Year, right? Because that's where I want to apply this. Impermanence. Impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Impermanence, it doesn't simply mean over time this little wooden thing will get eaten up by bugs or dry out and fade away and turn into dirt and then turn into another tree, which we can understand up here. It's a really radical experience of just fundamental inconstancy and unreliability of everything we think of as a thing. It's totally radical. You can't get it here. You've got to tune into the wavelength of existence, of being, and just realize the flux that everything, there is nothing that can be relied on. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And if we tune into that flux, this is what the word often translated as emptiness means, shunyata. It's a difficult word because it can lead us to nihilism, or it can lead us to reify emptiness and make a thing out of emptiness. It's a difficult word. The way that Buddha taught this in the Kaccayana Sutta, which is in the Pali Canon, he said it's between the extremes of existence. The middle way is between the extremes of existence and non-existence. Existence is thinking there are things, and non-existence is thinking there's nothing. Between those 2 extremes, this is the middle way. And then he steps through the 12-link chain of causation. From ignorance, so on through contact, clinging, craving, so on through birth, sickness, old age, and death. So everything exists dependent on everything else. And then unwinding that, saying with the cessation of death comes the cessation of birth. With the cessation of birth comes the cessation of becoming, and so on, all the way back to the cessation of ignorance. So it's unraveling that, which is all about getting this radical inconsistency, understanding this radical inconstancy, unreliability, impermanence. Just this is the end of suffering. So that really points directly at, it is the explanation of the 2nd mark of existence, suffering. We translate dukkha as suffering, but that's a bad translation. Dukkha, it's something we can't translate. It's like dharma, karma, Tao. We can't translate these words. That's why we use them as they are. But for some reason we translate dukkha when we think of suffering. But it's not being tuned into this radical impermanence, this radical unreliability, this radical inconstancy. If we are not tuned into that in every fibre, we experience dukkha. It's just what happens. And the third one, non-self, Buddha said, if everything is impermanent, inconstant, and therefore everything is going to cause this dukkha, suffering, is there anything in here of which I can say, this is me, this is mine, this is what I am? And the answer, of course, is no. There's nothing. There's no way we can land on anything and say, this is me, this is myself, this is what I am. It can't be done. So, I'm just reading a wonderful book about Deepa Ma, who is absolutely a modern day saint. She's just she was a remarkable woman. Actually, she was a remarkable woman, and then she was a remarkable nobody's there. She just, fully woke up. There's just nobody there. Just an amazing story. But the structure of this book, there's a lot of this book is people telling stories about their experience with Deepa Ma. And one of the people said she'd just lost a child, and she visited Deepa Ma, and Deepa Ma said, so you don't understand impermanence, do you? There's nothing to rely on. And she went through something far more eloquently than I just did, and far more powerful, but basically something along those lines, to point out to this person that there is nothing that can be relied on, that everything is impermanent, that our children, thinking we have children, thinking that there's something there that isn't going to die, it's a story. It's a foolish story. It's a story. And so, as we come back to this moment in time, this here now, where we're inclined to look back at the past, all of the past is a story. Every piece of it. There is nothing there. There is nothing there. Everything, existence, being. I'm struggling for the words here, but because existence and being both miss it too. But our nature, our life, is right here now. It isn't in those stories. If it isn't here now, then it's a story. And here now isn't just a bell I can pick up and say, this is here now. It's life, here now. Which we can't compartmentalize, we can't put boxes around, we can't put labels on. It's seeing an insect land up here and just choking up, because it's just beautiful. It's life. So as we look forward into the new year, what do we look forward to? Well, there's this tendency to say, if we're bringing our stories forward, but let's not bring our stories forward, let's just say we're looking forward to the new year now. We've put all our stories down. What is there? Well, the vow that, well, I'm going to sit every day, well, I'm going to be a better person, well, I'm going to go on a diet, I'm going to save money, I'm going to learn how to save money. All these things we can promise ourselves, right? These are all, it's lovely, right? It's something that comes out of a generous heart. But the truth is, all we have is here now. So the vow is a great idea, but the vow is for here now. So instead of saying I'm going to be a better person next year, look at the person sitting next to you and just give them a beautiful smile and a little bow right now. Instead of saying I'm going to go on a diet, say, I'm going to pass on that cookie. I'm not going on a diet, so I'm going to have a cookie. But you did right now. If you're feeling brokenness in your heart, bring your mind to it right now and offer metta to yourself or to wherever it feels appropriate for that to land. Right now, there are only two times, the past and the future. Living is now. The place where I picked that up from, and it was actually a book by Teachings of Osho that I picked that up from. He tells a story in there of somebody who was on their deathbed, and they were lying there and, oh, I was alive, but they weren't. They're alive now. Now they're aware, right? But at the time their mind was in the past or the future, or just fairy tales. They weren't actually alive. This fulcrum, as we see it, between the old and the new, is actually a time when we can come into our bodies, into presence, into mindfulness, and actually be here. Be here, not be caught up in the stories, however painful or beautiful those stories are. Recognize those as stories. Be here with this reality, here, now. And stay here, because it's always here. Now there is an in time going on as well. I mean, I recognise there's a practical reality here, so we'll keep on coming back. But this is how to end suffering. Deepa Ma, when she told that story, when she talked to that person who just lost a child, she was a person who was at complete peace. Complete peace. Everybody who saw her after she woke up, they were in awe at this person's presence, mindfulness and loving kindness. Just this extraordinarily beautiful person, absolutely at peace, in love with everything, totally present for everything. Her life story: she was married off at the age of 12, obviously against her will. She was sent to live with her in-laws' family, as was the custom in she was what's now Bangladesh. And her husband was working in what is now Myanmar, so he went off to Myanmar and left her, this 12-year-old, living with her in-laws without him for a few years. And then she went off to join him in a country where she didn't know anybody, didn't speak the language. And then she moved into the function of the marriage, which was, it was her job to have a male child. So she spent the next 15 or 20 years trying to have a male child and hitting all sorts of problems with family because she was failing to do so. And then she had 2 children in her mid to late 30s. Each of them died very young. And then she had a 3rd child who survived. She was almost 40. She got really sick. Her husband, who obviously loved her very dearly and was incredibly kind to her from what I've read, he stopped everything and he came to look after her, and he died. And her parents had died. She went back to India and her parents were gone. Everything she had except for this one child was taken away from her. And she's this most beautiful person, this person who's at absolute peace, because she lives here now. That's it. She's always here. Somebody asked her about her dreams one time, and she said, mindfulness is present in my dreams. That's it, that's all she said. It's 24/7 by 365. Love, presence. That's it. So, if you want to make vows for next year, think about maybe making them for right now instead. I will stop talking and you'll discuss.